Hello everyone, my name is Adrian. I am the TA for your 204 research class. Welcome to my living room. I generally do my follow-up videos from my house, so you'll see that I have kids and other noises and guinea pigs and things running through, so just ignore them if they make noise. But I did get a lot of feedback emails today because we had a long class and I know we took in a lot of information. So I wanted to give you some idea of what your first assignment is going to look like. So hopefully that will kind of de-stress everybody and make you realize how eminently doable this assignment is. So this is a really fun place to start off. So we're going to be doing a literature review. And this is essentially where you start most research projects because just like the librarian talked about today, you don't want to launch into an exploration of something that's already been solved, right? You don't want to go to a mystery that we've already figured out. You basically want to look for something that is important and novel and something that not only captures your attention so that you're willing to stick with the process, but that's really going to be welcome in the field. So it's important that we see what's out there before we actually try to create our own project. So that's where we start with a review of the literature. And when we say literature, what we're talking about is articles that are published in peer-reviewed journals. So not people's opinions and not op-ed pieces, not anything that you basically are going to find in like your Wikipedia areas. You really want to see articles that have been reviewed by people who know the field and have established that this is really solid, rigorous science. So specifically for the purposes of your assignment, I want to make it really easy for everybody to do really well on this. So the idea is that if you look at the rubric, I'm going to be talking about the specific points that are in the rubric. So the very first thing that we want to talk about is the area of interest. This doesn't seem like it's really that big of a deal, but this is really important. And this is something that people will look for if you apply to programs later on, different research programs, doctoral level programs. They want to know why you care. What's the big deal about this group? Is it something specific to who they are that matters to you, or something specific about the illness or condition that matters to you? So when we talk about area of interest, we really want to explicitly write a paragraph about why this matters. So what is the issue that we're talking about? And in this case, you generally want to talk about the diagnosis itself. So is it a really serious, important diagnosis because it has really bad outcomes for patients if it's not managed well? Is it something that occurs really frequently or has major impact when it occurs? We want to talk about what is it exactly that we're looking at. Then we want to focus in on the population. So we want to talk about who we're going to look at this particular what with, right? So if we're talking about asthma, for example, asthma is very different in adults that live near freeway on-ramps versus children who live in rural areas with a lot of crop dusting, right? So the population is really important because it's going to determine kind of the angle of what we look at. If you try to look up articles about asthma, you're going to find thousands, tens of thousands of articles. But if you care a lot about a certain age range in a certain location with a certain type of asthma, you're going to be able to really ferret down and get a good sense of what the literature says about that group. So you want to do what, you want to do who, and then this is the really critical piece. Why do you care? What's it to you? Have you seen it in your practice? Do you have a family member who has this illness? Do you have something about it that you feel struck by the injustice of how we currently manage it in our system? What is it about this illness that says, I, as a student, as a researcher, am going to be committed to figuring this out? So I talked to you all a little bit about my background when we first started, which you probably don't know about unless you've seen some of my stuff at UCLA or wherever, is that I focus exclusively on diabetes, right? Type 2. We usually call it T2DM. The reason I focus on type 2 diabetes is not only because I have it, right, but that I am a Mexican person living in Southern California, which has a high incidence of diabetes in its Mexican population. I have lots of family members who have it. My father recently passed away because of it. It's something that I live with, and it's something that I know that we haven't really mastered how we should be managing it, not only as a public community, a cultural community, but as a healthcare community. So if you ask me why diabetes, I've got a pretty good reason why I want to study it. And there's a lot of conviction behind what I say. So it's more likely that people are going to support me or let me study it because I have a good reason. Okay, so that's the first part. If you can nail that section, then you get full points, right? So this shouldn't be too difficult of an issue. If you want to go in a little deeper, you can talk a little bit about the demographics of who you're studying. So like in my instance, I like to talk about diabetes in Hispanics, so I actually like to know what the stats are. How often does diabetes occur in Hispanics aside from, compared to the overall population of the U.S.? How often does it occur in women over 45, right? Because that's my target population. And so I use these statistics to substantiate why that's my who, right? So this area of interest section, what we're looking for on the paper is really a paragraph that talks explicitly about these three things. What are you looking at? What population? Why do you care? Right? So that's a pretty easy, that's an easy point grab right there for you. The second piece is the PICO question. And I know we're going to continue to look at PICO questions throughout the quarter because I will tell you honestly, as a doctoral student, sometimes these things still trip me up. They're kind of complicated. Dr. Salmon's going to talk to you. I know Dr. Chang is going to continue to talk to you. Take your best crack at it this time. Nobody's expecting you to have a perfect PICO question. That would be a lot to ask at this point. But do your best. So what we're talking about is the population, right? And you've already determined who this is because that was your area of interest. You talked about who you specifically are going to look at, right? And then you want to talk about what intervention would you like to consider, right? So just because it's easier for me, let's look at older Latinas with type 2 diabetes, right? So that's my population. So I'm going to say older women with T2DM, right? Okay, so that's my population. Now, interventions, we know there's a lot of things that you can do for diabetes, right? There's medications, there is different types of physical activity that are recommended, there's different dietary changes, right? So what if I want to look at the difference between people who've been assigned a vegetarian diet versus people who haven't, right? So is it recommended for older women with type 2 diabetes to have a vegetarian diet? Maybe that's helpful, right? So that's interesting. It's a little innovative, and it's kind of questioning some of the current knowledge that we have, so that works. So when we go through the PICO, we want to do a comparison group. A-R-I-S-O-N, comparison. I feel like I spelled that wrong. Anyway, you get the idea, right? So my comparison group here should be either a group that is my control group, right? So it can be people who I feed not only a veggie diet, but like a certain number of meat units per week, right? Or what I can do, which is honestly what most people do, is I can just do care as usual. So what I'm probably going to do is I want to say a veggie diet versus a non-veggie diet. And maybe I'll just define what vegetarian is. I might be kind of loose about it, but I don't want to compare them to like people who are vegan or people who have like some ovo-lacto vegetarian. I just want to say normal people eating like normal people eat compared to women in this group with diabetes who have chosen to be exclusively vegetarian. Cool. So now I care about the outcome. So what happened? So if I look up some studies that have actually examined this, what were the results? So this is a basic PICO question, and I swear I just thought of it on the fly, right? So like, it doesn't take a whole bunch of planning. The idea is that you drop into each one of these sections, just plug in the important stuff. So my PICO question is going to look something like, in older women with type 2 diabetes, is a veggie diet compared to a standard diet or a non-controlled diet more effective at controlling their blood sugar? Right? That's all of it right there. The outcome is controlling blood sugar. The population was set, the intervention was set, and the comparison was set. Now the T down here you'll see is always bracketed. The T is time. So in this comparison, maybe a veggie diet doesn't make a difference in the short term. So maybe I care about people who've had 10 years and over, right? Because if you limit things by time, that helps give you a more accurate reading of what the literature is saying. Because sometimes things are very effective in the short term and not effective in the long term, and sometimes it's flipped. So now my question becomes, in older Hispanic women with type 2 diabetes, does a vegetarian diet compared to a regular diet that's unmonitored result in improved blood sugar outcomes for people who've been on that diet for more than 10 years? That's it. That's PICO question. I know it seems like I threw a lot of stuff at you. As I've said, this section, just try your best. Nobody is saying it's going to be perfect. Often my questions need a lot of work. That's why I have really good mentors. But try to follow the formula and try to make it so that it helps you in your actual literature search. Because now, what I'm going to plug in when I actually do my article evaluation, now like EndNote or Google Scholar or whatever you want to use, I'm going to say Hispanic, older, vegetarian, blood sugar control, 10 years. So I've got all my keyword searches. Now, if I get enough articles off of that, then great, you're cool. If you get 500, then maybe we need to refine some of these sections. If I don't get enough, then maybe I say, you know what? I don't need the time. That's kind of messing me up because I'm not getting enough articles. So let's just do in general without time, right? So you have the ability to kind of adjust how these searches go because of that. And so that's a great thing. So now you've slam dunked the first two parts of the assignment. The next part of the assignment is your list of articles. And actually, before I go to that, I want to talk about something really quick. Yay, scene change, hold on. Okay, let's talk about this. Primary sources versus meta-analyses or metasyntheses. This is really important. Don't be fooled. So there are researchers who make it their job to do these lit searches and then publish them because this takes some time, right? So if I want to know all of the latest breakthroughs on diabetes for Hispanics, I can go and do that lit search myself and write it up and compare all of the articles, or I can look for an actual publication that does that for me. And it just so happens that in 2015, somebody collected all of the most recent articles, 86 of them or something, that have to do with how Hispanics manage their blood sugar. Cool. That saves me time as a researcher because it means I don't have to do step one, which is this part. I can just grab one of these articles that has all of these different articles that they already reviewed. So in this case, this article actually reviews all of these articles, and they synthesize them and they just spit one article out. And then you just read that article, which is really fantastic. Except that unless you design a question yourself and run the study yourself, you'll never ever find literature that exactly matches what it is you're looking for. I wish that were the case. It's just not. That's part of what we do. So more likely what will happen is that in order to use this article, you'll have to kind of adjust your focus. And that's not a good idea when you're starting out. And for that reason, also you'll get no practice that you should be having because it's already done for you, right? So for that reason and for this assignment, do not use any articles that say something like, a meta-analysis of whatever, or a meta-synthesis of all of these things. Don't use that. What you need are primary sources. This is a group of researchers who investigated something. It was an intervention study, or it was some sort of process analysis, or something where they themselves initiated original scholarship that didn't exist. They did not review existing scholarship. The reason this is important is because the last part of your points, they're at the bottom. Let me see. Let me grab this other one. Here we go. Way down at the bottom. Ah, I almost dropped it. Okay. The last part of your assignment is that you actually do one of these lit searches and then just print off a list, like a reference list, of all of the articles that you found. 15 to 20 is what you want to do. If you do less than that, then it'll probably be reflected in your points. So try to find 15 to 20 of articles that match this PICO question based on your area of interest that you identified, right? And make sure that none of those 15 of the 20 are people talking about other people's work. You want to have primary sources of people talking about their own scholarship, their own research, their own investigation or exploration into the topic, okay? So the paper itself is probably, the narrative part that you write, these first two pieces, is maybe like a paragraph and a half, maybe 2 paragraphs. It's actually not that long. I'll try to put up a sample on Moodle. I totally will. We have time. So I'll put up a sample on Moodle. The idea is that tell me what, who, why, write your PICO question, do your best, doesn't have to be perfect, right, just try. And then attach a reference list of all of these articles, 15 to 20 original articles that answer this question. That's it. It's really simple. So like I said, your actual thing that you hand in may be like 4 or 5 pages, but it's basically just like this much writing, and then the rest is just like reference lists that you hand in. So it should be a relatively simple assignment. I think you're going to enjoy it. Last quarter, or the quarter before last, when we did this class, people did a really good job. And when they didn't, that was good too, because it gave us some insight into what they were interested in. It helped us kind of work with them and refine their PICO question, because it takes time, right? And a big part of research is interacting with peers and thinking and talking things out and thinking and conceptualizing. There's a lot of stuff that we do in research that isn't actually going to net you anything on paper. It's more going to be about how it changes how you think about the world and how you think about concepts. And once you get that good sense of it, then you can do some real solid work to change evidence-based practice and affect things on the floor. So it's a real great thing. So I will be posting another video specifically about PICO question examples, and we'll talk about that. But follow these steps for assignment 1, and you should be totally fine. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email me, post questions onto the discussion board, and I'll get back to you. All right, I hope you guys are having a great night. It was really fun meeting you all.